of building a life, of building a world of goodness. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. You will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. If we build this world from love, yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam chesed, olam chesed yibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. 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 So we'll start our service in just a minute, but want to make sure that if you are getting ready to light your candles tonight, that you can see we have ours behind us. We'll be lighting them momentarily. First, we'll light our Chanukiah. Tonight is the sixth night, yes, of Hanukkah. So we'll light our Chanukiah, and then we'll light our Shabbat candles. The Chanukiah always has to come first. Why, Rabbi Micah?
I don't know. Why don't you tell us, Rabbi?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Because you remember that lighting the Shabbat candles is really the last act of work that you do before Shabbat starts. And so if you're going to light something else, like our Hanukkah menorah, then that means that has to come first. So we will light our Hanukkah menorah before we do anything else. But first, we are just delighted to be able to welcome you to services. It has been a long time since we did this. Feels a little bit weird to be back virtual again. But the reason we're doing this, despite the fact that it's bitter cold, and we're so glad that no one is coming out tonight, is we made the decision, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, that we realized that because we have so many amazing staff at TI who are not Jewish, that we wanted to be able to sort of give them a gift in this holiday season and be able to give them the Shabbat of Christmas and of New Year's as a time that they can spend with their families, especially because we know that so many of you are staying home and with your families and your friends right now. So this Friday night and next Friday night are going to be entirely virtual. So of course you are welcome to join us again next week, and then we will be back in person at TI after the new secular year begins. So maybe let's do one more opening song, and then we'll do our various lightings and blessings. So we're going to start with Ki Eshmer Shabbat. And I know that some of you have the prayer book at home for this week and next week. You can actually still get the free CCAR flip book with all of these songs. But if you want to be able to have a prayer book at home, you could just go to the CCAR Press website and buy one there. We're also happy to just order one for you if you'd like it. TI, we're going to be singing Ki Eshmer Shabbat, which is just this beautiful poem that says, when I keep Shabbat, God watches over me. It's a sign forever between God and myself. Ki Eshmer Shabbat, El Yishmereni, Ki Eshmer light our Hanukkah menorah first. We have our, y'all can see it, we have our little sufganiyot menorah. It's a little menorah that is made out of jelly donuts, not real jelly donuts. Nes Gadol, Ayapo. A great miracle happened here that I lit the candles all by myself.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Hanukkah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu, bayamim ha'el b'azman hazeh. That's a lot of lights in the screens. I'm not sure if
We'll see how that works
we're gonna
out.
have to move that a little bit.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
gonna move this a little bit just to go. All right, so now that we've lit that, we can light our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat.
And then for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri agafen.
Amen.
And then this beautiful giant challah that Maura Diane made for us.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. So you can see its awesomeness there. All right, let's see if we have to move our menorahs. Maybe we'll see how much I can block it with my face. Oh no, it's your face that needs to block it.
Oh well, that's not such a.
You gotta move it
That's a
just-
small miracle in and
Just
of
the
itself.
right angle.
Hold on a second. All right, let's see. Oh,
no,
it's
it's a
quite
little too much
mystical.
light. All right, talk amongst yourselves. Rabbi Michael, tell them a little about Shalom Aleichem while I move our Hanukkah menorah.
You know, it's funny that you should ask, Rabbi. It was only a short time ago that we were in Sfat with a number of people who were traveling, who were really like pilgrims from our congregation. We went to different holy places and holy sites. And Sfat is holy for many reasons, but one of the reasons is that in this place, this song was composed and these words were written, and this idea of a Sabbath bride was realized, and that also the accompanying angels, that there would be angels that come and greet you for Shabbat, and that give you the choice to celebrate Shabbat or to turn it away, and that the people that really engage and receive the blessing of Shabbat have to do so at kind of a bit of a cost and a bit of a labor, but nonetheless, it's always worth it to those that make the effort in some small way. We hope that they're visited and reminded that keeping Shabbat is not easy, but it is angelic and it is something sacred.
There is such a thing as too much light, apparently, but I think we'll do this, even though it looks like perhaps the Shabbat angel is coming right out of here.
And high
Hold on a second.
and holy.
We're still going to work on this light. It's a little much. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. So, for those of you who watch virtually every week, I know that each of you have sort of developed your own customs. But for those of you who this may be your first time or it's been a long time, we would just remind you that even though you're always welcome to stand and sit the way that you would when you are in our sanctuary, when we're all together, that it's also possible just to have a moment and rise in your heart and take this moment to really let your spirits rise, your voices rise, even if it's not on the balls of your feet. So we'll call each other to worship with the words of the Baruch Hu, and if you wish to rise in any way, you're more than welcome to do so. Baruch Hu et Adonai We always say two prayers between Baruch Hu and Shema, and one of these prayers is the one we do in the evening, and always thanks God for being the one to bring on the darkness. In the morning, we do another version, thanking God for bringing on the light. But at this time of year, where we have just left a few nights ago the very darkest and shortest night of the year, and now we find ourselves actually starting to move towards the light again. We praise God for having given us darkness, but also for always giving us a season of light and warmth again, even though it feels so very far away. So we'll turn in your prayer books if you're following in your prayer book to 134 and sing the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. We continue with the words of the Ve'ahavta, and even if you don't have the Siddur in front of you or you're not familiar, you can hear in this tune, this is not a song so much, these are the actual words that are chanted from the Torah itself, and so we chant this prayer just as it would be done if we were reading from the Torah. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'am בשבתך בביתך ובמלאכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. This time of Hanukkah, when we tell the story of the Maccabees, and we recall that no one is entirely sure why they're called the Maccabees. It may mean that the word Maccabee comes from a word that means the hammer, or perhaps it is the cry that the Maccabees used as they were going into battle, an acronym that they took from this prayer. They would say, Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mem Kuf Bet Yud. And those letters together spell the word Maccabee. But Michamocha Ba'elim Adonai is what their ancestors sang at the Song of the Sea when they said, "Who is like you, O God, among all the gods who are worshipped?" This week in our Torah, we are getting close to the end of the story of the matriarchs and the patriarchs. When we say our avot, we remember each of those first patriarchs and matriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, as we sing words of tefillah. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el ha'gadol ha'gibor v'ha'nora, El Elyon, gomer chasadim tovim, v'konei ha'kol, v'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevig ula livnei v'neihem, l'ma'an shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. So we're going to turn now a little bit further in our service. And we are going to take a few moments and offer a prayer for those who are in need of healing. And we know that during this time of year, it can be even harder to think of those who may be ill and not able to spend time with their family and their friends and the ones they love. So we're thinking of this time of those members of our community who have asked for us to share their names and to be praying for them. We're thinking of Lacey Weinstein. We're thinking of Arlene Alper. We're thinking of Yitzchak Ben Meir. We're thinking of David. We are thinking of the other David. We are thinking of just each of you who we know is feeling sick in your heart or in your body. And so thinking of you and thinking of everyone who's holding names close to them, we offer this Misha Berach. May the words tonight. I'm gonna silence the screen so you don't have
Oh,
to
yeah.
like you're looking at me. I'm all off kilter. Okay, this is better.
I'm gonna work it out.
So
It's like the good old days already, and I think
the,
that's what's important.
it's true. The candles are still this way.
You're gonna be great. You're
All
gonna be
right,
great.
all
Your
right.
side lit.
Okay. So as you know, it's Hanukkah. And my guess is that for anyone out there who is either an educator or a parent or who works with people who are not Jewish, chances are at some point someone has asked you to explain what Hanukkah is all about. And that always seems to be a very challenging question for people. But really, it's because there are multiple Hanukkah stories. The first one is the historical version. And in a nutshell, it's obviously much longer than this, but the historical version is about, 2,200 years ago or so, that the Jews were living in a time where the Seleucid Greeks were in control. I'm looking at Rabbi Michael to make sure I don't mess up any of my historical data. You can tell me if I'm wrong. No, okay. You tell me when I'm wrong. So, and the Greeks, they had a king named Antiochus, and he really believed that he did not want people to be following these different kind of customs. He basically wanted everyone to be Greeks, and so he started putting a lot of restrictions on the Jewish people about the ways that they could live, or as Peter Yarrow says in the song that we're not gonna sing, their right to exist was denied. So because of this, there were a number of Jewish people who rose up against the Greeks. They fought back. We call them the Maccabees, and they actually won, and they were able to lead this revolt and basically take over this part of the world for the Jews, and they start the Hasmonean dynasty. How was that? Was that generally accurate?
Succinct.
Okay, succinct, yes, succinct but generally accurate. That's the historical version. Then we get to add on the version that the rabbis added in the Talmud that says that when the Maccabees were able to take back their temple, they went and they looked and they realized that their sacred menorah did not have enough light to be able to light it, which was an important part of their ritual experience. They had one cruse of oil left, of kosher oil, and they used it to light the menorah, and wonder of wonder, miracles of miracles, they were able to light it not just for one night, but for 8 crazy nights. Okay, so those are the two main stories. Now you may be thinking to yourself, these stories actually aren't that complicated. They're not that confusing. Why is it that it seems so hard for all of us to explain what Hanukkah is really about? Are we missing something? And if indeed you thought that, then you would be correct. We are missing a lot. And the first clue to the fact that we're missing something is that whole story about the Seleucid Greeks and about the Maccabees. It's not in our Bible. It is actually in the Old Testament, as some people might call it. It is in the Christian version of the Bible, but it's not in the version that we use in our Tanakh. The books of the Maccabees are in the Apocrypha. That's in these other holy books that are not really our most sacred scriptures, which means that we knew the Jews in our past, when they were putting together sacred scriptures, they said, leave this stuff out. Now, we don't know entirely why they left it out, but we have a few good guesses. First of all, in the books of the Maccabees, Maccabees 1 really tells the story about how it was about, the Jews were fighting against, they didn't want to be like the Greeks, right? But Maccabees 2, the second version of what happened during the Maccabees, really makes this seem much more about like a civil war between the Jewish people, between Judaism. Some people think that's actually where the term was coined, is in Second Maccabees, about people who really wanted to hold tight to their Jewish beliefs and those who were ready to assimilate. The idea of sanctifying a civil war among the Jewish people, not necessarily something that our ancestors were big on. Another problem with this story is we know that even when the Hasmoneans, when they took control, it seems like it would be really great to finally have these truly devout Jews who are in charge. But it turns out that these Jews, after not even very long, they end up sort of losing their Jewish values. They decide that the priests and the leaders, they're going to be the same people, and the Hasmonean dynasty very, very quickly becomes corrupt, and it gets to the point that the last Hasmonean princess. There's really no one left for her to marry, so she marries this guy named Herod, who you may have heard of before. Herod was Jewish, but not so much into his Judaism. He was a great builder. Anyone who's watching who was on our Israel trip, you know about him because Herod was the guy who built Masada. He was the one who built everything at Caesarea. He was a pretty incredible guy, but not such a great king of the Jews. But it was the Hasmoneans that got us to this point that Herod was in charge. So historically, this is not really a time period or a holiday that's something that we as a Jewish people you would think would want to celebrate. And in fact, for many, many generations, Hanukkah was not that big of a deal. The reason that it came back in fashion, not actually because of Christmas, even though that helped, but actually has more to do with Zionism and the idea that the early Zionists, they were looking for some sort of brave and brawny Jewish heroes who were willing to fight for their beliefs. And they rediscovered really the story of the Maccabees. And they were like, these are the kind of Jews that we want to be. Okay. So all of that is wonderful information, right? Hopefully I've given you a little bit more and you know more about what the story of Hanukkah is. But I realize that there's nothing that really actually makes us feel good about this holiday, right? Most of us still in these darkest days, what we want is something to celebrate. What we want is a time to feel that there is light and there is joy in these darkest of days. And perhaps the history doesn't help that much. But what I'll say about learning the real story of Hanukkah in all its complexity is that this is one of those holidays that should remind us of just how important and amazing it is to learn our own history. Because you can look back at the story that happened, 2,200 years ago and see so much reflected that we're still experiencing in our own day. In our own day, we're still trying to find that line between what it means to assimilate and what it means to keep our Jewish values. That we're still looking at our own political leaders and the people we admire and wondering what it takes to go from someone who is a true leader to someone who has really become who they always said they wouldn't be. We look at what it means when you have Jewish infighting and when perhaps our own worst enemies are ourselves. Each of these are themes that we see among our own people and that we see in our own time. And perhaps the best way that we can move into a new year and try and start to make ourselves and our country and our people a little bit better is to look back and try to learn from these experiences. So I hope that you take a little time in these next couple days of Hanukkah to do your research, to do a little bit of learning about what the story of Hanukkah is all about, and may it bring you some sort of light and some sort of beauty and warmth, even if it's in a different way you expected. So I know that for many of you, just watching a screen for this long is not easy. It's not easy for me to just be looking at myself on the screen either. So we are going to start bringing our service to a close. And at this time, I'm going to call Rabbi Michael back, and we are going to think of those in our community who we have lost. In particular, we recall with love the names of those taken from us in recent days, and our hearts go out to their families in sympathy as we recall their names. Leonid Goshinsky, and Dolly Newport. And now we recall the names of those, the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or on the wall of honor for perpetual memorial. Francis Ach, Haskell Allen, Nathan Balk, Herman Barkin, Merle Beck, Isaac Bolutzerkovsky, Sanford J. Bernheimer, Tilly Bauman, Saul Brodsky, Joseph Cohen, Morris Dankner, Essie Sheila Feffenbach, Herman Fishman, Benjamin Fleischer, Ida Levitt Friedman, Harold C. Feudenberg, Rose Goldberg, Sarah Goldenhirsch, William Henry Goldman, Henrietta Rothschild Goldsticker, Gertrude Blumenau Goran, Phil Grodsky, Gerald R. Harris, Lee R. Hart, Betty Birnbaum Hirsch, Buddy Hockman, Carolyn Bauman Isaacs, Manning Kalish, Meg Shield Kalish, Shirley Price Katz, Jacob Kerner, Stephen Kessler, Sam Koppler, Meyer Koppelau, Nancy Cohen Lampert, Marlis Lair, Samuel Liberman, Nathan Mathis, Evelyn Rath Nassauer, Corinne Greenwald Petschaft, Minnie Putterman, Jay Ring, Albert Rosenberg, Jack B. Schiller, Harold Schneider, Esther Kreisman Schwartz, Bill Sharon, Samuel Schur, Maurice Siegfried, Jerry Silverman, David Summers, Katie Stadden, Jerome Steele, Joshua Rader Stein, Louis Stein, Alfred Strauss, Lily Levy Strauss, James W. Tomachek, Peter Trainin, Louis Victor, Rose Warren, Nellie Winter Weaver, Lois Wilkerson, Jean Wing, Mildred Bernstein Wise. So those names and the names we keep on our hearts, we turn to the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divarach yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'avela uvizman kariv emru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shmei Nekudusha Barichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechamata, Ta'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Ofseh shalom v'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort all who are bereaved. Ose shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. So we thought we'd close with a little Hanukkah music. Which one should we do?
I think we're gonna have to go with some of the classics.
Can we do two?
Let's do two.
Excellent. All right.
And we're gonna say thank you to everyone who stayed along with us, who kept along with us, and may your light continue to grow. There's still more Hanukkah to come. For all the young people who are watching, there are more nights to come. There's a lot more light to come. And for everyone of every age, may all the light grow. As dark as it is, may all the light continue to grow. Mm-hmm. All right, a little bit of levity.
Hanukkah, oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Dreidels to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night they shed their sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night they shed their sweet light to remind us of days long ago. Excellent. All right, one more. We're not doing light one candle. And if you have complaints about that, you should direct them to the complaint department at Michael Alper's email address, because he doesn't like that song. Happy Hanukkah.
It's a heavy price
we
to pay.
We don't have to do it this year.
Having a rabbinic opinion on Hanukkah songs.
You should say
something. I think everyone can agree that this is a pretty good one. It's pretty good.
Okay, this is a good one. So this one is Rock of Ages. We're also going to sing the Hebrew one. We always do this in honor of my dad, who I'm sure is also
nice and slow
singing along. In my family, we only know the first three words in Hebrew, and then we make the rest up. But I have the book, so I will sing it correctly.
And you can sing la la la.
strength failed us, and our world broke their sword. When our own strength failed us. That is a good song. You're right. That's better. That's better.
It's a pretty good one.
All right, everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Shabbat Shalom. We will see you next week again over Zoom. And